Hey everyone, welcome back to 100 Days of Coding JavaScript. In today's video, I'm going to talk about loops, one of the really simple topic in JavaScript. And probably this is the last topic considering the JavaScript fundamentals. And from the next video, I think we're going to start writing some projects. So let's cover this last topic. If I'm not wrong, I need to check my notes. So what are loops in JavaScript? JavaScript loops allow you to repeat a block of code multiple times, which can save time and reduce the amount of code you need to write. Pretty simple, right? So say suppose you have some code which you need to repeat like for a number of time, and you know the specific number of times, right? Like 10 times, 20 times, 30 times, or one time. Be it any specific number, we are going to use loops. Sometimes, it depends, that number can be dynamic also. So there are different types of loops in JavaScript. So I'll go back to my code editor. Where is my code editor, right? I need to open my browser also. So loops, and let's open the console also. Okay. So say suppose I have this log, right? I'm going to close this one. Console.log. And say suppose I want to print hello, so like 10 times. Maybe, or let's say 5 times. So what I need to do, right? I need to copy this 5 times, right? So this is more of a writing a duplicate code for one action. This is the action I want to print each time, right? And I have written it 5 times. So instead of writing it 5 times, we can use something called loops. So to write a loop, we use something called for, right? And inside these brackets, I'm going to write something. And this is the block of code inside this curly brackets, which you want to repeat the number of times. So the first thing which goes into this loop is called the index. Okay, where I want to start my loop. So my loop will start from 0, right? I equals to 0. And my loop will run. So this is the condition, right? This is the starting point. This is the condition until which point I want to run my loop. So say suppose I want to run my loop for 5 times, right? So I'm going to write 5 here. And see that it's starting at 0, right? So it's going to run 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So total 5 times, because once 4 is less than 5, it's going to run. But if 5 is less than 5, it's not going to run, right? Let's write the next thing, which is the counter. We need to increment the I also, otherwise it will go into the infinite loop, right? So how it is going to start, right? It will start at 0. It's going to increment the I every time after executing the statement which goes inside this curly brackets. So I'm going to remove this. And now what is going to happen, right? So initially I will be 0, right? I'm going to check whether I is less than 5. So okay, 0, initially it's going to be 0, right? So let's put a comment 0 is less than 5. So that condition is true. So if the condition is true, it's going to print this. Or actually is going to execute all these statements inside these curly brackets. So right now we have only one statement, console.log hello. So it's going to print hello. Next, it's going to execute this I++. So I is going to get incremented by 1. Then again, it's going to come here. Initialization will be done only once, right? Now the value of I is 1. So again, it's going to come here. 1 is less than 5, right? So it's going to print again hello. Then I is going to get incremented by 1. I will become 2. Again, we'll check if 2 is less than 5. Yes, it's going to print console.log hello because the condition is true. I will become 3, less than 5. Again, it's going to print console.log hello. I is going to become 4. 4 is less than 5. Again, it's going to print console.log hello. And finally, when I is going to become 5, now this condition has become false, right? Because 5 is not at all less than 5. So it's going to come out of this loop and it's going to execute the next statement. I'm going to print here, done, something like that. Okay. So if I run this now, see that we got hello 5 times, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 0, 1, 2, 3, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, right? And finally done. So anything, any logic which you want to execute a particular or specific number of time, you can use the for loop and you can write whatever logic you want to execute. Now let's move on to the next loop, which is a while loop, right? So we mostly, there are three type of loops actually: the for loop, the while loop, and do while loop. Do while is rarely used, so I'm going to cover only while. So while is the syntax, right? Then we have the round brackets, and here we need to write the condition, whatever condition if you need to write. So I'm going to create a variable here called j is equals to 0, or maybe this time we'll go with 1. Okay, now here I'm going to check if j is less than 5, right? I'll say console.log, say ha, I'll say ha, something like that. Okay, so now how this is going to work? So while loop, how it works, it's going to check. Initially j is going to be 1, so 1 is less than 5, right? So it's going to print ha, but we need to put the increment also. So here in case of for loop, we put the increment value here, right? In case of while loop, we generally put that inside the body of the while loop, right? So here I'm going to increment j by 1. So same thing is going to happen here, right? So initially j is 1, so I know 1 is less than 5, right? So it's going to print ha. Next is going to increment j by 1, so j is going to become 2, right? Again 2 is less than 5, so the condition is true, right? So it's going to print ha. J plus plus, it's going to become 3, 3 is less than 5, again it's going to print ha. J is going to become 4, 4 is less than 5, so again it's going to print ha. And finally when j is going to become 5, and we know 5 is not less than 5, it's going to come out of this loop where we can say console.log ha, something like that. Okay, so now if I save, see that 4 times it has printed ha, and ha is done. So two different types of loops you can use while writing the logic for any of your JavaScript application. We're going to use for loop so many times, sometimes while loop also. It all depends. And in while loop, this is important, right? If you remove this statement, your program is going to go into the infinite loop because you are not satisfying the condition here. So I'm not going to run it. Just a word of caution I would like to tell you. Now the final thing I want to talk about is looping through an array. And this is what we are going to do so many times while writing our application. So I'm going to create the fruits array, like how we have created in case of array lesson, right? So I'll put some fruits here like apple, banana, then probably I'll go with oranges and kiwi. Okay, so sometimes so like I can access the fruits using something like the syntax, right? Fruits 0 or 1 or 2. Maybe I want to print all the fruit names. For that I can use the for loop, right? So I'll write for, and then the body, right? Inside here I'm going to say let I will be the index, I is equals to 0, or I put something like this. Right, I'll start with I equals to 0 until I is less than fruits dot length. All right, so I need to print until the I is less than fruits dot length, and in this case the length is 4, right? And I'll run through it. I plus plus, and I want to print each and every fruit name. So I'll say log, and how can I do that? I can say fruits and the square brackets. Now here I can put 0 or 1 or 2. And what is changing here, right? So the thing which is changing here is the value of I, right? So I is going to be 0 when it is going to start. So how this is going to run, right? So initially I is going to be 0, right? And 0 is less than 1, 2, 3, 4, right? 0 is less than 4. So it's going to print the console.log fruits I means fruits 0. So it's going to print app. Next I is going to plus plus. 1 is less than 4, so it's going to print banana, right? Then I is going to become 2, 2 is less than 4, so it's going to print orange. I is going to become 3, 3 is less than 4. So it's going to print kiwi. And finally, I is going to become 4. Now 4 is not at all less than 4. So it's going to come out of the loop. So let's put another console.log fruits printing. You need to type the correct spelling. Done. Right? Let's save and see that. Apple, banana, orange, kiwi, fruits printing done. Pretty simple. And this is really important. We're going to write this most of the time. And there are some other ways also looping through an array called functional programming in JavaScript. I'm going to cover that mostly in the advanced JavaScript part. This is more of a fundamentals of JavaScript, right? So loops are very important in JavaScript. There are multiple ways of writing loops in JavaScript, like the for loop. I talked about for loop, right? So if you have some code which you want to repeat several number of times or specific number of times, we can use for loop, or we can use while loop, or we can use do while loop also. I'm not covering do while loop. You can search on the Google and learn about it. That's rarely used. And the important thing is most of the time we need to loop through an array also. We can use loops for that. Now this is mostly old way of writing code in JavaScript, looping through the array. There are new ways which we are going to use, and I'm going to cover that. And this is it from the loops perspective. And I think I have covered all the fundamentals till now. So I have covered all the tools which I was talking about, right? So these are the tools, right? We talked about data type variables, conditions, logical operators, comparison, arrays, objects, loops, and even the functions, right? So now you know all the Super 6 tools to write good JavaScript code. Next, I think I'm going to bring up some projects, and we are going to learn everything else while building the projects only. So the exciting part is going to start from the next video. I think this is at day 15, if I'm not wrong. Let me check. Yeah, this is day 15, which until this time I have covered all the fundamentals, but the exciting part is coming from the next video where we'll start building some of the JavaScript applications. So until then, you take care, goodbye, and thanks for watching the video.